Hey seniors, I'm back. Okay, so I know that you thought we were done with World War II, and we kind of are, but we got to finish the war in the Pacific, right? Now, look, the first thing to remember about this war in the Pacific is that it is a race war, in the sense that it is envisioned as a conflict between two racial groups, both of whom view each other as superior, both of whom view the other one as inferior, right? So the Japanese view the Americans as a decadent, lazy, pathetic race of people who have been overwhelmed by consumerism and capitalism, and who don't have the kind of spark and awe of, intensity to come up and defend their homeland effectively. They don't have any honor, in other words. And it was this assumption about the American people that went into the decision to attack Pearl Harbor, because the Japanese just thought, look, the Americans are not going to rise to the occasion. They're decadent. We don't have to worry about them, right? The Americans, on the other side, right, they definitely have this ingrained prejudice against Asians, and especially against the Japanese after Pearl Harbor. This is something we've been talking about going all the way back to the late 19th century, right, when you had the Chinese workers coming over to the West Coast and not assimilating. And so on the West Coast in particular, there was a lot of intense hatred of Asian peoples, especially the Japanese. And we talked about that before a little bit when we talked about Japanese internment, right? And so you see all this playing out in the propaganda, right, on the American side, always portraying the Japanese as these kind of more animalistic, barbarian, brutal people. And this kind of ties into the whole social Darwinism thing, the whole theory of evolution. The Japanese are not as fully advanced. So the racism in the United States is kind of in this evolutionary framework of thought, the social Darwinist framework of thought, okay? And we also talked about that Bushido Code, right? We'll always keep that in mind when you're dealing with the war in the Pacific. The Bushido Code is the way of the warrior, right? It's the ancient samurai ethos, or the rules for how they're to behave and maintain their honor, right? And loyalty is the most important thing to them. And loyalty to their military commander, and loyalty to their nation, to the sovereign nation of Japan. And the individual does not particularly matter in the context of that greater loyalty to the nation. And because they have this sense of the nation being more important than the individual here, or the individual's dignity matters more in the sense of the maintenance of his or her honor rather than in their life continuing, they have no respect for those who surrender, right? Absolutely zero respect. And this affects everything in the Pacific War, because the Japanese themselves are going to be refusing to surrender. And they're also going to be treating the American prisoners of war pretty badly, right? So if we think about, from the Japanese point of view, a surrendered soldier has no honor at all, is not due any dignity. It explains why they're treated so poorly in the prisoners of war camps in the Philippines, for instance. And if you look at prisoners of war in the Pacific, more than a third of them died. And this is in great contrast to the prisoners in the European camps. The American prisoners in European, German camps, only 1% of them died. They were treated much better in Europe than in the Pacific, okay? So these are the kinds of things that really are defining this war in the Pacific. We talked about them in the beginning when we started with the Pacific, and we're going to continue just keeping them in mind, that this is a clash. It's viewed as a clash between not just cultures, but races. And this code, the Bushido Code, being a really important and integral part of the Japanese culture and ideology. Okay, so keep those two things in mind going forward.